Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a September... Oh, Murphy left the chat. I've been reading quite a few books lately, so I figured I might as well just do a little September wrap up because I need a place to put all of those books in one video, and I was just going to do a yearly wrap up because I don't read that much throughout the year, but we've got a couple books just in September, so I thought might as well. And I have my handy dandy book journal here, or reading journal here, to help me remember the ones that I don't have physically present. Because I get some from the library, I listen to some on audio, some occasional ebooks. So the first book I read in September was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, and I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. If you don't know, this is about this guy called an Antari being able to travel between different worlds. There's different Londons, like Red London, White London, Grey London, and he is able to travel between them. Only a handful of people have this ability to do that, so this magic to do that, and not all the Londons even have magic in them, but this follows his adventure when something goes wrong in one of the Londons, basically, and he's trying to fix it. I did enjoy this book, but there were a couple parts of it where I did not feel drawn to just keep reading. It felt a little bit boring at times. Again, I don't know, I feel bad for saying that, but out of the 400 pages, it's just that if it was a little bit smaller and more condensed and maybe just more action-packed throughout, maybe that would have kept me going. But I don't know, maybe it's just that fantasy is not something that I devour in one day, whereas some people can. I feel like I will show you some books where I did devour in like a day or two, but that's pretty rare for me, mostly because I believe the type of books that it is. Again, maybe I love fantasy, I love reading it. I remember reading City of Bones and the whole series by Cassandra Clare and Infernal Devices and all that when I was a teenager, and I really loved it, but I again don't remember reading like 150 pages of that book in one go. But it's also because it's more complex, especially at first, the world building and things like that in fantasy, so I feel like I just can't read 150 pages of that because I have to use my brain a little bit more. Whereas some of the books that come after, they come in a world that's easier to wrap your head around and a lot more dialogue, so in those books I'm able to just read in like 1 or 2 sittings or something like that. But I still enjoyed it and I thought it was pretty original. The main thing that I did not love about this, not even just the pace, because I felt like that was very, very subjective. Well, reviewing a book is subjective in general, but the main thing that I thought could have been done better is how anticlimactic the ending or like the fight scenes were. I just felt like when you talk about how vicious the enemies are and how powerful they are throughout the book, then when you come in front of them, you'll see more of a fight scene happening throughout maybe multiple chapters, and it's more of a challenge of, again, a longer battle. Whereas I feel like the actual fight scenes themselves were very, very short and just over as soon as it started, kind of, and again, pretty anticlimactic. So I will still be picking up book 2. I only have books 1 and 2 in this one. I actually got those at a used book sale. I believe I got them for $1 each, the paperback, so I got that for $1. The Gathering of Shadows in front of me there, I'm looking at it, for $1, but they only had the first 2 in that. But, you know, that was an awesome deal and it's in really good condition. And yeah, I will be reading The Gathering of Shadows, and then I don't know if I will go ahead and buy the 3rd one. I might get it from the library if I'm interested in the 2nd one. I do like the idea of finishing a series, again, unless I really don't like it. This one is more like I don't feel like I have to run and grab the 2nd one. Again, I've read that at the beginning of September and I haven't read the 2nd one since, so I just need a little bit of time because it took me a little bit of time to get through it, whereas other books I've been through them quicker. The 2nd book that I finished in September is Demand Side Sales. So this one is a nonfiction, and I will say I only rated this 2 out of 5 stars. I'm a little bit surprised because people rated it, I think 4.8 out of 5 stars is the rating that it has on Amazon. So, you know, don't just take my review for it, but I thought that this book did not provide as much value as, it's not even a big book, honestly. It's a small book. I just feel like it should have been not even a book, or like there's not enough information to warrant reading 223 or however many pages. I don't mean to be rude when I say that. They use 3 examples throughout, which they probably do on purpose to stay consistent, but then they describe things in the same way. So they, even though it's the same example, it's kind of like they're using the same example but also proving the same point. And to me, it just felt like I was reading the same thing over and over again. Like I'm not learning anything new. The main lesson, or the lesson from that, I would say, is that customers don't usually buy for the reasons that manufacturers or sellers usually would think they would. What I mean is, if you buy a laptop, if I'm selling a laptop, I might be inclined to sell you on the RAM or the SSD or SDD, I don't know, like all the kind of technical features of it that some people might know. But most people, when they're buying a laptop, they think more along the lines of, I need it to last throughout my day of lecture before I go home and charge it again. So I don't want it to die throughout the day of me just being at school. Or I want to be able to edit my videos on it, so I don't want it to be lagging as soon as I download a video editing software, something along those lines. Whereas those technical terms as RAM or things like that would be associated, but they don't mean much. So basically learning to sell how the people need to buy, their pain points, and what is drawing them towards that purchase or potentially making that purchase, knowing those. But it talks about interviewing customers and things like that, and how to interview them, and it's more so about learning how to interview them. And I don't really see myself as a business person going on and actually interviewing customers, so I don't know. But a lot of it again just felt like it was very redundant. Even the summary at the end, I'm like, there's not much I can note down on my notebook for that. There's not a lot of lessons that I'm getting, which from a nonfiction book I don't love. But maybe give it a try and let me know. Let me know if you had other lessons from this book, and if you read it and loved it and had other lessons from this book that I might be just skipping over, just let me know. Put them in the comments. Again, every review is subjective, but that is just mine. I feel a little bit bad of rating a book like a 2-star, because I know the author puts a lot of effort in writing a book, but I am also here to give my honest review. On the other hand, one of my favorite books, and this is a reread for me this time, is The Millionaire Fastlane. I absolutely love this book. I think this time, the first time I read the whole thing, like word for word. This time around, I read the start, maybe the first 100 pages or so, and then I skipped the second, like the sideline part, this sideline, slow lane. I think I skipped past the slow lane and went right to the fast lane, because I was on a mission when I was reading that. I knew that I was starting a business that was not according to the fast lane from this book. Again, because I read this before, so I knew where the information that I wanted to was, and it was in that last part, again, when he talks about the fast lane, which is why that's where I went to. I was gonna read it all again, but then I thought there's no point. I've read it once completely, and now I'm really going back and seeing what I need from this book, and what I needed was the fast lane. And I'm happy, really happy that I read this again, because then I started something else, another endeavor that is more scalable, more along the line of Fastlane. If you're an entrepreneur or even interested in having a business, you have to read this book, because it tells you what business to start and not to start, or really what type of business to start and maybe not to start. I do have my notes on that, as well as I believe I made a full review of this book that should be on my channel, so go check that out. But just from my one page of notes here, MJ DeMarco talks about the SENSE frameworks. So SENSE stand for control, entry, need, time, and scale. So basically, you need to be in control of your business. You need a high enough barrier to entry so that not everybody else is doing it. You need to have a need, basically, for what you're providing, and not just because you want to do it. you don't need to trade time for money, so you need to automate things and really have your time back. Don't just do something per hour. Don't get paid just per hour. You need to be able to remove your time from the equation, as well as scale. So you should have a business that's scalable. So really that's the essence of the book here, the SENS framework. And you might think it's simple to simplistic, but it's very important, and a lot of business ideas that you might think of might fail the SENS framework. A lot of it, if it's just a physical location, it's probably not going to be scalable. Or if you're the only one working or doing something, again, physical, it might not adhere to the time framework. Well, I don't think every business should be a fast lane business, because then we wouldn't have local coffee shops and things like this. But if you do want a business that allows you to make a lot of money, but also at the same time allows you to be free and potentially retire early after you put a bunch of work and effort in it, maybe even sell it at some point, then I would highly recommend that you at least give The Millionaire Fastlane a read. Again, it's maybe my favorite nonfiction book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the one that got me into entrepreneurship. Like everybody else, I feel like that's so basic, but I feel like The Millionaire Fastlane is my current favorite book in terms of giving me a lot of answers that I needed. So I gave this one 5 stars, obviously. And the next one that I read, I already returned it to the library, but it was The 7 Brief Lessons on Physics. That's a short book. It was okay. I think I rated it 3.5 stars out of 5. For such a short book, I thought it would have explained the concepts more like if I was 5 years old, kind of. But they are physics concepts that are complex concepts, so I've still been trying to understand them, reading more about them, like quantum physics or even space-time. It's things that are difficult to explain in very simple words, but it was okay. It was an okay read, so I think I gave it 3.5 or 4 stars, because it's a quick read. It's a lot more digestible than maybe a lot of the bigger books out there. Now, let's get to some fiction books. The next book that I read a couple days ago was The Inmate by Frida McFadden, and then right after that, I read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. And I had read The Boyfriend, or listened to The Boyfriend in audio, back in February, I believe, and I absolutely loved it. And I loved it more than I thought I would. I think I listened to it in one day. But let's talk about those two. I don't love giving a lot of information about those types of books, because I feel like it's always better. I went through it without knowing anything. So if you want to go through those without knowing anything, which I would recommend, just skip to the next section where I talk about the next book here. I'll put the little time frames or chapters, whatever. But if you're one of those people who need to know a little bit about a book before you decide to go into it or not, I will tell you just a little bit about it. So this one is about Brooke, who is a nurse practitioner who starts working at a maximum security men's prison, but turns out that her ex-boyfriend Shane is also at this prison, and she's kind of the reason that he's in there. So that's all I'm going to tell you about it. I'm not going to tell you what happens next, why he's in there because of her. You gotta read it. Read it. The Housemaid is about Millie, who gets offered a job as a housemaid, but a live-in housemaid at this very rich person's house. And she starts to see things being a little bit weird around the house. Things happen, things are done. Ready to know what. So maybe let's talk about The Housemaid first, because that's the most popular one. And The Inmate, I've heard a lot of bad reviews about it, about people saying it's now my favorite book of hers, but this one is really good. And I had the opposite feeling about it. The Housemaid was a nice read, don't get me wrong, and I will continue reading the others in the series. However, I figured it out. I thought it was going to be more plot twisty, but whoever the bad person was, it wasn't a surprise to me. And I also just thought more bad things were going to happen. Now, I picked up this book without reading anything about it. I just knew that it was really popular, but I thought it was gonna be more serial killer kind of vibes, and I thought all her books was serial killer, so I kept waiting for just who is gonna be dying kind of the whole time, and just anything that was happening, one, I had the reaction of, yeah, I'm not very surprised. I'm not surprised at the person doing it. I'm also not surprised at it being done. Did I figure out every single thing detail by detail? No. I was still like, oh, I see, but not mind blown, not mind blown. This one, however, the inmate, which still a bunch of people seem to not like, I thought that was better. Like this one, if we come across something, leaves me wondering, well, it's not the end of the book yet, so what else is coming? And then something else comes, and then something else comes, and it keeps me really thinking, what next? Like, is that the last shoe to drop? I don't know if that's even the right expression, but is that the last plot twist that you're gonna have there? Or the last secret, the last thing I didn't piece together? So I will say this one, to the very last sentence, I loved it, especially the last sentence. I actually adore books that have amazing last sentences that either relates to somewhere else in the book, or it's just really, like, it makes me laugh, it makes me cry, it makes me shocked, mad, like, it makes me feel. I love those last sentences. So I absolutely love this one, honestly, more than The Housemaid. I feel like I shouldn't be saying that. I feel like it's wrong of me to say that, but again, that's how interesting book reviews are and how subjective, I guess, reading is to everybody. But I read that really quickly. I read this really quickly. I'm going to be reading more Frida McFadden books. Honestly, if I got started earlier this year with Frida McFadden, I might have just decided to challenge myself to read all of her books in 1 year. But right now it's October, so I probably will not get to it. So I rated The Housemaid 3.75, and I rated The Inmate 4 stars. No, 4.5. Really loved it. This one I explained kind of why 3.75, but this one, if I liked it so much, you might be wondering, why didn't I rate it a 5-star? I did not think the motive of the people doing the bad thing ended up being satisfactory enough. I thought that was like, could have found a better motive to put in there that I would be like, I should have pieced that together. Like, it's just something that they added, like sprinkled in there. Just a little motive. Here you go. Here's a reason for you to do that. There's no particular reason. I like when it's more well thought than that. Something that if you paid more attention, reader, you would have noticed that earlier in the book I said this, a little nugget here, but you never picked it up. You never picked up the crumb. Here, when there's no crumb to be picked, when you just give me new information that I didn't know as the motive, I'm like, okay, wasn't that big of a deal. I wouldn't have done that in that situation, but you know, people do. People think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 8. I've actually read 8 books in September, and that's crazy to me. I don't think I've ever read 8 books in 1 month in my life, but the last book that I have read or finished in September is actually an audiobook, and it was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, and I absolutely loved this book as well. I did give it a 5-star because honestly I don't have anything bad to say about it. Again, completely an audiobook, and sometimes audiobooks can be difficult to understand, especially if it's complex worlds and things like this, but recently I've had really good, pleasant audiobook experiences, and maybe because I knew about the Hunger Games arena and world, so I could picture it very well in my mind when they talk about the cornucopia and things like that. I kind of pictured it like the first Hunger Games arena was, even though I know it changes every year, but I kind of just pictured it like that. And maybe just Suzanne Collins has really good descriptions of things that I was able to visualize it really vividly. But I will say that you should read the Hunger Games before you read this one. I would say even the whole series. So this one is a prequel. It's the story of Haymitch when he was a tribute. So when he got selected, his time before the arena, inside, just literally just like in the first Hunger Games where we follow Katniss, this is just following Haymitch. And if you've read the Hunger Games, and again, also you will have to read the Hunger Games before you read that one. So I don't know if that would be any spoiler at all, but this is something that I already had, an expectation that I already had going into the book, so I'm not giving anything away here. But if you don't want to hear about it, maybe skip to the next section anyway. But I will say, I'm not giving any spoilers, I'm just saying my thoughts before even reading the book was, we know Haymitch as this drunk jerk, basically, especially at the beginning of the Hunger Games when he mentors them. And people often wonder, like, why is he like this? How did he end up like this? He's the only tribute alive left from District 12. Yeah, I get it, but you know, why are you this annoying and this much of a jerk? And it's really interesting to go back and see his point of view now, and you kind of expect for things to go wrong in one way or another, because you know that he ends up as this drunk, mean guy. So you know that it can't just be happy endings throughout, or happy, I guess, moments throughout. So now I read this book or listened to this book, and the whole time in my mind I was like, what went on in your arena? What went on for you to become like that? What sort of trauma basically did you go through that you ended up like that? And you know that he went through a bunch of things again, because we know how he is. So that was really interesting. I really liked that aspect of, I already had the connection with that character, and now I'm going back and seeing it. I just noticed, because I read The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay so long ago. I was a teenager when I read that. So I actually don't remember much from Catching Fire, except that I love the arena in the movie. And I don't remember anything from Mockingjay, I feel like. So I wonder if I should have gone back and read those books. I don't think I need to read The Hunger Games. I think I watched it multiple times, enough to know the story very well. But maybe I'll go ahead and either read or maybe just watch Catching Fire. I feel like just watching it will be enough. I don't need to go ahead and read. I don't even have the books anymore. And I have so many more books I want to read. So I don't know if I will be as happy just... Well, I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Maybe I should just read Catching Fire, because I did enjoy it. But I don't love rereading books, which is why I'm like, maybe I should just spend 2 hours watching it instead of 2 days or a week reading it. But that was a 5 stars for me. I really enjoyed it. And I think you should too if you liked Hunger Games. Again, it really put me back in those feels, but I prepped my heart this time. Whereas with Hunger Games, like with Rue and everything, like I didn't know, I just bawled my eyes out. I don't actually cry that much when reading books compared to watching movies. Like seeing it and the music that's usually in the background when something sad happens, that just gets me to cry at every single movie ever. But when I'm reading, for some reason, I don't know, I don't really cry that much when I'm reading. But if you're somebody who cried when you were reading the first Hunger Games books and now you're gonna go back into this world, I don't know, for me, it felt amazing. I loved, and I was kind of just waiting throughout the book of just them being in the arena, because that was my favorite part. But obviously it's also bad because it's terrible. And anyway, I just really enjoyed it. Now that we've been through the 8 books that I've read or listened to in September, now we come to October, also known as spooky season. Let's talk about what I want to read in October. The first 2 are classics. And I don't know if you know, but I tried to read Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Again, beautiful covers. I love them. I paused on it for now. I had more interesting books. And I found it a little bit hard to read through. But I know that it's the kind of things that I can't just expect to read a lot at once. I feel like it's the same as nonfiction. For classics, it's more of a slower read, which is okay, but I was having such a good time reading fast for once, so I wanted to read some more because of that. But I will get back to Little Huck, just not in October, because October is for Frankenstein and Dracula. And holding them like this, I realized that Dracula is quite a bit thicker than Frankenstein. So I shall start with Frankenstein because I've never read that before, and then I will move on to Dracula, and hopefully it will be around the end of Halloween or October where I get to that, or where I'm reading it. So I'll say the first 2 weeks I'll be with Frankenstein, and the last 2 weeks with Dracula maybe. I don't know how long it's gonna take me to read any one of them, but I will try to make a plan so that I actually can get through them in October, because I feel like they are the perfect October books. I know, however, that I will want to indulge in some more Frida McFadden books. So I have one that is at the library right now, just waiting for me to pick it up. That is The Teacher. If you've read it, let me know if you recommend it. But again, I don't trust any of you all, because a lot of people on Book Talk said that this wasn't very nice. And I thought that this was very nice. So I'm going to be reading The Teacher. I also just put Verity by Colin Hoover on hold because 2 people recommended it. And I also put the 2 of the 3 others in the series of The Housemaid. So The Housemaid is watching the last one, and then I will try to find The Housemaid's Wedding as well, or listen to it or something. But I kind of want to see what's next in that series. I kind of hope more people die, honestly, because I love those that have people that die. But my priority for October will be those books. But again, so Frankenstein will be the first one in my TBR, Dracula will be the next one, but then as I'm doing that, and probably as audiobooks, because I don't think those will be very good audiobooks in and of themselves. I think the wording might be something that I would be distracted if I just listened to it, whereas if I read it, then I'm more likely to focus. And I might also take some notes on those ones. But yeah, if talking about audiobooks, some more Frida McFadden books, as well as Verity. So I'm excited for those. And then in terms of a little bit of nonfiction sprinkled in there, again, I'm not in a rush to finish those books. You might see those in multiple weeks and wrap-ups in a row, but I'm reading a couple of nonfiction books at the same time. Right now I'm reading Existential Physics. I started that this morning. So right now I'm on Does the Past Still Exist? And again, I only read 10 pages. Whereas when I was reading The Inmate, I was reading 100 to 150 pages in one go. This one I read 10 pages and needed a break. Again, it's just different. It's just different. This one is like, instead of watching a movie or watching a show, I'm reading those ones. But this is the time that I put towards my learning. So this is like for my brain, I guess. And while fiction reading is also good for your brain, this is more for my heart. So I like to have a little mixture. And again, if it takes me 3 months to read one of those books, that's fine, because I still get through 4 books in a year in terms of nonfiction, and the rest can just be fiction. That's totally fine. Again, I do want to spend less time just watching TV or scrolling on my phone, and more time reading, even if it's just books that I enjoy. I also have Stephen Hawking's, I have A Brief History of Time that I started as well, and Black Holes and Baby Universes. Honestly, this one seems small, so I should have maybe started with that, but I thought that it would be good to start with more general ones and then dive more deeper into just Black Holes and Baby Universes and other essays. But because it's an essay, maybe I should have started with that one. Chapter 5, A Brief History of a Brief History. I don't know. You know what? Maybe I'll just go back and forth between those. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna be getting it in my little brain too. But that's everything for September, and some of my very exciting...
To do a voice search, hold down the mic button on the remote control while speaking.
No, thank you. So that was the 8 books that I read in September, as well as my October to be read. And let me know if you have any book recommendations. Again, I've been reading more lately and I've been really enjoying it. And I absolutely love, again, my reading journal. I've been writing some notes, reviews, and everything, and I've been loving keeping this. I will definitely keep that going for 2026, probably just in the same journal. Maybe I can get 2 years worth of journaling in one notebook, and then probably just keep it and pass it along to my future daughters. But I would definitely love to show you everything about my book journal, maybe closer to the end of the year here. But that's everything. Again, let me know if there's any recommendations or videos that you want from me or books that you want me to read. I'm very, very excited, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.